Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're tackling a really big question. In our busy, hyper-connected world, why on earth should any of us bother reading the classics?
Come on, you know who you are. Well, it turns out you're not alone. Let's start with a really funny but also super profound observation from the Italian writer Italo Calvino. He noticed this strange thing people do. They feel this pressure to say they're rereading a famous book, probably because they're a little embarrassed they never got around to it in the first place.
So, in this explainer, we're going to go on a bit of a journey. We'll start with that weird human quirk, then we'll get into the philosophy of what even makes a book a classic. After that, we'll dive into the actual science of how these books can literally change your brain, and we'll wrap up with how you can make all this timeless wisdom your own.
Right. So Calvino's idea is that this whole rereading thing isn't just a little white lie. He thinks it points to something much bigger. The massive cultural weight these books carry. They're just so fundamental, so baked into our culture, that we feel like we should have read them already.
So what's the deal with the word classic, anyway? What does it actually mean? Is it just any old book, or one you were forced to read in school? Well, Calvino says there's no single, easy answer. Instead, he gives us a bunch of really beautiful, thought-provoking ways to think about it.
I love this. This gets right to the heart of it. A classic isn't some dead object on a shelf. It's alive. The words don't change, of course, but the book keeps offering up new secrets, new meanings, every single time you read it, and for every new generation that finds it. And then Calvino makes it really personal. He says a classic can be a book that you actually argue with. He even admitted that he loved to fight with the writer Jean-Jacques Rousseau in his head. For him, Rousseau was a classic precisely because wrestling with his ideas, even disagreeing with them, helped him figure out what he himself truly believed. And this just nails that incredible feeling, doesn't it? When you're reading a classic and you find a thought you've had your whole life, a feeling you could never quite find the words for, and suddenly, there it is, written down perfectly. It's like a lightning bolt of recognition.
Okay, so we've talked about the poetry and philosophy of it all, but now let's get into the science. Because it turns out that reading a classic isn't just some abstract exercise. It physically, literally changes your brain. There's some powerful stuff going on in there. So researchers make this really important distinction between how we read online, skimming, jumping from link to link, just trying to grab information, and something they call deep reading. This is that slow, immersive, get lost in a book feeling, and classic literature is basically designed to get you into that state.
Now this is wild. Neuroscientist Marianne Wolf points out that human beings were never born to read. It's not hardwired into us like speaking is. We literally have to build these reading circuits in our brains by borrowing bits and pieces from other areas. So, deep reading, it's like the ultimate workout for those circuits. It makes them stronger, faster, and better. And get this, how you read really matters. A massive study in the UK with almost 35,000 young people found that kids who only read on screens were 3 times less likely to say they actually enjoy reading. But the ones who read physical printed books, they were way more likely to love it and be better than average readers. The physical book itself helps us focus.
So, okay, we're building up our brains. We're deep reading. But what's the point? What does all this actually do for us? Well, beyond just making us better readers, it looks like it actually makes us better, more empathetic human beings.
And look, this isn't just some nice, fluffy idea. It is actually backed by a lot of data. Multiple studies have shown that people who read fiction a lot are just better at understanding other people, at feeling what they feel, and seeing the world from a completely different point of view. So, a couple of psychologists, Raymond Marr and Keith Oatley, they really dug into this. They found that reading literature improves something called our theory of mind, which is basically our ability to get that other people have their own thoughts, feelings, and motivations. And they even showed this holds true after accounting for the idea that, maybe empathetic people just like to read more. So when you put all these pieces together, you start to see the whole picture. You combine Calvino's philosophy with the modern science, and you realize that classics are these incredible tools for understanding the world out there, and, maybe even more importantly, the world in here. Okay, so what do you do now? This is not about some dusty, mandatory reading list from school that just feels like a chore. No way. This is about empowering you to start your own personal adventure. What's funny is that Calvino was worried about this problem decades ago. We're all drowning in information, what he called an avalanche of current events. So his answer isn't some definitive top 100 books list. It's something way more personal. He says you should invent your own ideal library. First, start with the books that have already shaped you, the ones that really mattered. Then, add the books you want to read.
the ones you think are going to matter. And this is the best part. Leave some empty shelves. Leave space for surprises, for the books you haven't even heard of yet. Your library should be alive, a reflection of you.
And really, this is the most important rule of all. According to Calvino, you should never read these books because you feel like you have to. You read them out of love, out of your own curiosity, your own passion, your own search for that one book that becomes your book.
In the end, after all the definitions and the brain science and everything else, the argument for reading the classics is, well, it's just that simple. Their value isn't just in what they do for you. It's not just about becoming smarter or more empathetic. The value is in the experience itself.
And Calvino leaves us with this incredible little story. So Socrates is about to be executed, and he's learning a new song on the flute. And someone asks him, "What good will that do you?" That question, what good will it do you? It just hangs in the air. It reminds us that learning and beauty and art, they have a value all their own, a value that's bigger than just being useful. And maybe, just maybe, that's the best reason of all to pick up a classic.